Hey, everybody.
Hello.
It's another fireside chat with Donna and Diana. We giggle because we are neither regular with these, as regular as we want to be, nor as polished as we want to be.
But we do chat all the time, and that fuels these. We say, oh, we should make a fireside chat about this.
So today we want to talk about the importance of connecting to inner guidance. This year, especially, and really for the last couple years leading up to this year, we have been receiving guidance that it is becoming more and more and more important to be able to connect to our guides, our higher self, our whole soul self, as the outer world around us becomes greater chaos, is in a greater state of flux, as all the changes begin to really, really get bigger and bigger. Becomes so important for us to have our whole soul available to us, and all of our team of guides and our inner wise selves, having a relationship with our inner wise selves, and just being able to tap in to help us through these times, especially. So this is the year. If anybody out there has not begun to foster and build and tap into a relationship with your whole soul and your higher guidance, now's the time.
Yeah. Confusion is the word that pops up for me as you share that, as there's such confusion out there right now. And that translates in here.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what makes it so important, is that being able to get to my own clarity and my own answers within, because there's so much out in the world right now that, purposefully or not purposefully, doesn't really matter. It's just building, it seems like, decoherence, which is just another word for confusion.
That's a great point. It's a energetic jungle out there.
It sure is. Wonderful meditation teacher, David Manning, that we follow, had in his most recent meditation had talked about this. He called it, there's a frequency war going on out there. And I really was like, oh man, that feels right. Because there is, you've probably had these experiences too, where I'll feel like, yeah, I'm flying high, I'm keeping the frequency I want. And then something comes in from wherever, whoever, and it's like, oh. And it feels like, what happened? Sometimes I have to backtrack and be like, wait a minute, where did I dip? Where did I drop? And once I drop, then I start getting confused, I start getting angry, fearful, all those emotions come in. So
yeah, that's a good point. And that we're all here for different reasons right now. Like we all chose, we were very excited and chose to be here during this time at the soul level, and for all these different purposes. And so without that connection to why did you choose to be here, and how best can you navigate this time, then yeah, it's easy to get pulled around and not be able to navigate well and kind of ride the waves. It's the difference between, I'm not a surfer, but it's the difference between surfing crazy waves and being caught in them and being tossed around and even feeling like you might drown.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the other end of that pole, positive and negative, is our intuition's getting stronger. Our psychic senses are getting stronger. And so our tools are rising in awareness and in power and strength. And that's really why we wanted to have this fireside chat, is to talk about, how do we connect to our higher self? How do we connect to that inner knowing, that inner guidance, even things like telepathy, that is super useful, I think, in developing that as well. Because when you and I, for example, we play with this or don't play with it, it just happens, or you talk about it with your husband, or it's another way of tuning in. And that's happening a lot more too. So how do we connect with those messages that are coming in? Like, how do you, what's your favorite way?
to connect to message to my higher self,
Yeah,
and my
to your
guidance.
own inner messages, or
Yeah. So I have meditated for many, many years. And of course, that provided a beautiful foundation of just being able to quiet the mind a little more. It's never absolutely quiet. And the mind is actually, often how we connect to our higher guidance too. So it's useful, but foundation of meditation. But then lately, now, after years of sessions and meditation, my favorite way is to journal, to automatic writing. Because I've really grown fond of being able to check back in with what was given to me, with the guidance and the answers to my questions. And I can do that anytime. I don't have to, like waiting for a session, waiting for a practitioner. Yeah, sessions are really fun to do, but I need more of the daily and the minute I can just pop in, ask a question, get the answer, or tap in. When I wake up in the morning, I do have a habit of immediately tapping in, and that's just with an intention. So I focus on my heart space and I come into heart mind coherence, which we will talk more about in a minute. But coming in my heart mind coherence with my breath and tapping in, and then it just goes. Then I feel very connected. I'm very aware of my guides and my higher self energy. And it's much easier to stay connected all throughout my day, just with a thought. Then I can throw out a question mentally or ask. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I needed to run down to Costco and Trader Joe's, which I really only do once a month now. I live about an hour away from the nearest city. And so it feels like such a madhouse to go down to the city, a lot of times to me, energetically speaking. And so we do this thing, both Diana and I do, of what we call getting out ahead of it. And so before we have an experience, we just tap in and then say or imagine or really feel how we want that experience to go. So for me, it was just a brief, like tapping in, feeling very connected, and then being like, I just want it to be a pleasant trip. And I'd like it to go smoothly and easily. And I would like to come home not feeling exhausted from it. And I would like the stores to have everything that I'm going down there for. And it did. It would just flow beautifully. I listened to a Gregg Braden podcast driving down and back. That was not a madhouse. I went down about 5 p.m. and both Costco and Trader Joe's were easy, pleasant, not full of people. They had everything. They had eggs. Costco had eggs. Imagine. So that's a good example of what Diane and I really both do on a daily basis, before a session, before an interaction, before any get-togethers, before any trips.
Yeah, that morning meditation time is so important for me too. And combining a few of the things you said, the biggest thing for me, and I just did it in this moment of, I learned it from Dr. Richard Bartlett, Matrix Energetics, years ago. He would say, so our attention's here at our eyes. And he's like, now just let your attention drop like an elevator down to your heart. And then, so just imagine doing that and look from your heart space. And it's like, and I feel my body relax. I don't know. That's just always worked for me for that part of the heart mind coherence thing of look from your heart. And so I literally imagine my little eyeballs going down there and looking from there. And when I do that, it's like this whole field opens up. And then I'm suddenly feeling what you're saying instead of thinking about what you're saying. And so I will do that in moments, or I will do that in my morning meditations. And once I drop my attention down from my heart space and connect with that huge field, because then it's easy for it to feel it go out, right? Of like, oh, wow, that really extends far out as I want it to. I can also access feelings I want to have, like that getting out ahead of it. Like I'll do that often in the morning of how do I want this day to go? And I'll think through the things I have to do and then feel into them. Well, I want to feel joy. I want to feel connection. I want to feel ease, space. I love how you did that with stores of like, driving's going to be easy. I'll have everything I want. All of it's going to be chill. And lo and behold, it happens.
It just works.
It works. And then once I go into that space, it's a lot easier to tap into my higher self and my guidance. But for me, I need to do that first. I can't just be like, okay, I'm going into meditation, higher self, tell me what I need. Like it's preparing the field and then I can actually hear it more or feel it more. from that space.
Well, and I would imagine, I mean, I know just from having these conversations with different people, it's so different for everybody
Yeah.
in terms of what works. You know, some people need to be moving, they need to be walking or swimming or doing something, you know, to really tap in. Some people, the driving time is the easiest. You know, not everybody can just sit down and meditate, and that works for them.
Yeah.
So,
And you and I have both, you were just sharing with me what you did with your session yesterday of, we've both been doing this thing where we will, before a session in the morning, as part of our journaling or meditation or whatever, typically those go to hand in hand for me of, okay, what do I need to know, to support this person today, this client? And then we'll write it down. It just whatever comes. And it's a fun exercise to do. And I've really, that's been a great tool to tap into my own inner guidance and to connect with their team, whoever it is. I mean, even going on a trip with you, you know, it's like you do this all the time, connecting with other people's higher selves from your higher self, making that link. And man, I see how much more peaceful things go. And that information, like you were sharing this morning, when I go back and read it later, spot on, like every time.
well, it has really built trust for me.
Oh.
You know, for years now, we have practiced this, right, in different formats and different ways of doing it. And that's another good point, actually, is that practice is needed.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of us start out being masters of hearing our guidance or connecting to our higher selves. You know, for me, it's taken a lot of practice. But since I started journaling the answers, or I mean, you could record it into your phone, any way you have of recording the guidance that you're getting, and then being able to check back in on that after the fact, you know, like the sessions, like we asked about the sessions. My session yesterday was so beautiful, so powerfully healing. And before yesterday morning, I was journaling before the session and said, you know, what do I need to know about the session? Is there anything I need to do to prepare? And they basically gave me 2 sentences. They're like, it's going to flow easily and be full of magic, and something about some really big healing. And so this morning I checked back in, and like the client, I didn't say the word magic at all, but the client said magic probably 5 different times during the session, and it did flow extremely easily. And it was some of the most powerful healing energy and healing that I've ever seen take place in a session. So that has just happened again and again. And what that has done for me, being able to check back in and be like, God, they are spot on every time. And it's so useful. And now I trust it more, and I depend on it more, and I ask more, you know, I use it a lot more. So for me, that's been so valuable.
Yeah. And when you say they, do you mean like your team or higher self, or how would you?
Yeah, I think of
Who's
that.
they for you?
Yes. I think of that as a whole team. So what we call our higher self or whole soul, and all that that encapsulates, as well as guides. I have a female lion-headed being guide named Dindara, which is interesting because we've been to Dindara. She appeared for me and told me her name long before I ever knew there was a Dindara. But her, and then Archangel Gabriel, and then a few other personalities who come and go. And sometimes I want to mention this too. For some people, I have noticed in sessions, it is almost easier to connect to what we would call a guide than our own higher self. And I don't know all the reasons for that or understand, but I just want to throw that out there, that if you are one of these people who struggles to connect to or feel like you're communicating with your whole soul or higher self, you know, sometimes a guide or a master, if you're very connected to Buddha or Krishna or Yeshua or an angel, or a deceased,
Yeah, I was
an
gonna say that comes
ancestor.
up more and more often, it seems like, as an ancestor, or I've even had a couple deceased friends that show up in sessions for people as huge supports and connecting into their own inner knowing.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I've just found that there's a lot of people who find it much easier to communicate with and get guidance from. You know, that's great. Everything is connected anyway. So it doesn't really matter if you're like, oh yeah, I'm so connected to my higher self and get all this guidance, or if it's, you know, your deceased grandmother. However and whomever you can get that from, it's gonna be, oh, how about you?
we're tapping into the same field, no matter who it's through that's on the other side, right? Is that quantum field and a higher frequency really of consciousness than what we are often, which is what we're seeking, right? From within the body, it's like beta brainwave, stream of consciousness, focus here in this 3D reality. But when we talk about tapping in, we're really tapping into a higher frequency. So to me, it's, my higher self is there with my dead grandma
Yep,
on the other side.
sort of same.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the stream of consciousness writing. I'm glad you shared that it was only a couple sentences, but that's all that was needed. So many people are like, oh man, I know I should journal, but I hate to journal. We don't have to journal, just jot down a couple things or record it, like she said. And I've even done that before. I will be out when I'm running, because I love to trail run, is often when I will start having that flow, of great ideas, inspiration, answers to questions. And so there was plenty of times I'll just pull my phone out of my pocket and hit record to get it down in that moment, even though I love to journal, because you don't have your journal with you. But the other thing I want to mention, because it's similar, but then we had also talked about, how do we know that that is our inner guidance? Because there's such a big field of doubt that we all tap into, and doubting our own knowing, doubting the messages that come through, thinking none are coming because we haven't noticed them. And so one of the things that I've been really focusing on is when that message comes through, like for example, I just got over a little head cold thingy, and I had been at my tiny house and I was going to the town, and my inner guidance was like, you need to grab these two things, that will help you. And I was like, I'm getting my stuff and keep going. Sure enough, I get sicker. Next morning I wake up and I'm like, I knew that. I knew I needed those. And that was my inner guidance. And so I had to drive, an hour back up. Didn't have to, but chose to, because it blew through so fast because of those supports. So sometimes for me, it's like, I knew I was going to need that, that I did hear that. I knew this was going to happen. How often does that happen? Right. And so that's another validation for me of listening to that little inner voice of guidance.
Yeah.
Of saying, do this, get this, go here. And when I am really tuned into that, like sometimes I'll have a play day where I'm like, I'm going to pay attention to that all day. Right. And literally we'll be driving down the road, turn here. And it'll reroute me around accidents or heavy traffic, or it's a good way to play with listening to that inner voice too, to give it free rein and say, I'm going to listen to everything that goes through today. And that's fun. That can be a really fun way to also start training that muscle, right, of listening to that own inner knowing.
I use that when we're packing for a trip, even if it's just,
you don't write a list?
A couple days. No, I write a list too. No, I'm a list person too. But really checking in and saying, what will I want or need during this time?
That's a good idea.
And having the intention that I don't want to overpack. I don't want to take stuff that I don't need.
Yeah.
And so tapping in and saying, and it really works when I remember to do that. I'll wear everything I actually take and not want something I didn't bring. Essential oils, all the supports that we bring, that kind of stuff. That's super helpful, because God, we could pack a whole suitcase.
And so often she has everything I need. So
we could pack a whole suitcase of our supports, and obviously don't want to do that. Don't have that room. So
for sure,
that's very helpful, because I always do, and I think you do the same thing. Stand in front of where all your stuff is and be like, okay, what am I gonna need for where I'm going, what I'm gonna be doing. So
that's such a good point. Another thing that I had written down when we were chatting about our chat was that giving ourselves space to actually feel that inner knowing or the inner answer, where it, because so often these things are in the moment, right? And when things are escalated, like back to the beginning of this conversation, with so much like chaos energy in the world, so much confusion, anxiety is on an all-time high, fear is on an all-time high. Like, how do we navigate in those moments? And so we had explored a little bit, like for me, that pause and checking in first with myself, of what am I feeling right now? And then you had added an awesome piece I'd love for you to talk about is, am I loving myself in this moment right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pausing. I'd forgotten. Yeah.
That was
Forgot
so helpful to
about that.
me.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that of, when things are heated out there, somebody's, out escalated about something, and there's lots of stuff people are escalated about right now in the world, of just pausing and checking in, because it's so easy to get caught up in that energy.
Yeah.
And when I pause, check into my heart, what am I feeling right now? Am I loving myself right now? That alone helps me step out of my own reaction and into that place where I can actually listen of how do I want to respond to this?
Even if that means saying, give me just a moment to the
Yeah.
person who is maybe like wanting you to respond or react right away.
Yes.
Because that's what gets me is I feel this pressure and I have to remember that I can take a minute
Yeah.
or many. I can walk away for a minute if I need to gather myself and then not be reactive.
Yeah.
Or be in a space or a frequency that I don't want to respond from. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, and walking away can be really helpful because I think you and I differ in, you are like, give me a minute. I know I need some time to process this. I'm going to remove myself. And I'm like solution oriented, like, we're going to solve this now. We're going to fix this now. So I tend to go in when it would be better for me to go out and
Well,
give
because
myself that time.
yeah, because I don't feel in the moment. It took me a long time
Yeah.
to figure that out about myself. I don't know what I'm feeling in the moment. I actually have to step back and tap in and go within to be like, what is going on inside of me and what am I feeling? And other people, are feeling and then they act out of that when I'm like I'm like
Yeah.
I'm not feeling anything right now. I have to go figure out.
Yeah. Or you're feeling so many things
Yeah.
you need to go figure out.
Yeah.
Where
One-
I tend to be more of it makes me think of the centers, the moving center,
Mhm.
emotion center,
That's true.
mental center, because I tend to be emotion first and then action and then mental. And you tend to be more mental.
And then either action and emotion or sometimes emotion and action.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely intellectually centered. Another tool that I use when I'm in the middle of things going on outside of me is the heart mind coherence.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this a lot and going kind of back to the basics with it. And for anybody who is not familiar with this, the Heart Math Institute is a fantastic resource to go get on their site. Or you can even get Google heart mind coherence and you're going to get a lot of information. There's so much science around it, which is beautiful. The benefits of heart mind coherence, how to do it. And it's very, very simple to train your body and your system to do this. The Heart Math Institute has identified 3 very basic steps to coming into heart mind coherence. So this is based on the fact that they've discovered we have a huge neural network in our hearts that actually exceeds the neural network in our brains.
It's like 40,000 or something.
Yeah, it's huge and it's so powerful. It's electromagnetically even more powerful of a field than our brains emit. So the heart is where it's at. And so coming into heart mind coherence is literally aligning and bringing into coherence the neural network in our brains and the network in our hearts. And this is all based on research and science. There's 3 main steps that they've determined is the fastest way to do this. The first one is to slow down and deepen your breathing. So taking in a deep breath and then exhaling for a longer amount of time than what you inhaled. And it doesn't really matter what those lengths are. I mean, if you draw in a big breath, okay, so that's the first thing. Do you remember the second thing?
Connecting your breath with your heart.
Focusing on your heart space.
Focusing on your heart space. Yep. So the breathing in and out, longer out than in, connecting with your heart space. And then
having a positive emotion, connecting to a positive emotion. So it can be gratitude. It can be the love that you are going to feel when you get home to your puppy, or the love that you have for a spouse or a child. any positive emotion, whatever's the easiest for you to connect to and feel in that moment. And that's it. Focus on the heart space, the breathing, and then connect into a positive emotion. And that right there just automatically aligns your heart and your mind, brings you into coherence. From that space, then you are tapped in, turned on. I mean, you are really tuned into all that is just being in heart mind coherence. And like I said, there are endless benefits to this energetically and physically and all the other ways. So the more you do this and practice this, the easier it is. Now I can just, with a thought, come into heart mind coherence. I do still like to do the breathe. Actually, the breath is more automatic.
So much.
Yeah. The breath is so important, but it's also more automatic whenever I have the thought coming into my heart mind coherence. Automatically I begin to breathe. So I really think that it trains your system the more that you practice this. And we have one meditation on our YouTube channel. It's a 21-minute in length it guides you through coming into heart mind coherence. And then we're going to put a few more up there of different lengths, so that if you are someone who wants that guidance just to train your system, somebody to talk you through it, we'll give you a few options here very, very, very soon. But here's a story about an example of how I use this when I'm out and about. I was sitting in a stylist chair getting my hair done. And this stylist is a beautiful, beautiful person, a beautiful individual, but was going into kind of spiraling down into lower frequencies through some stories that they were telling. And you all probably know what I mean. You can feel the frequency drop when yourself or somebody else goes into some old stories. And so I'm feeling the frequency drop and I'm sitting there like, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm in this conversation. What's the best thing to do? And immediately it was come into heart mind coherence. And so I did that, boom, just with a thought. The instant I had that thought, this all like happened at once. The instant I had that thought, I did it. And my stylist said, but anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's talk about much better things. Like it was just so instantaneous. And it really taught me, this happened a few months ago. And since then, I have been much more, what's the word? Paying a lot more attention.
Conscious of it.
Thank you. Much more consciously using this in many, many situations. And it has extended to when I am driving and I see a road rageful driver around me, I'll focus on coming into heart mind coherence in so many situations. That simple tool, because when we are in heart mind coherence, our energy field then is also in coherence. We come into full balance, full harmony, full alignment with all that is and with the source of our very being. And our impact on all the other energy fields around us then is profound and far reaching.
Driving's such a great example to do that in.
Yeah.
And I often will do that as well. And for me, because accessing the positive emotion when you do it is blessing. I will bless them, and I'll even say it out loud, especially if it's angry, because I mean, how many people have rage to varying degrees? And I'll say, oh, bless them. They must be having a worse day than I am. So I love that you brought that in, because that seems to be the place that so many of us let out whatever it is we have going on. It's somehow like a safe space to do that on the road, which is really weird, but it's a thing.
Yeah.
I had a great example of that recently in a group. So I was just up in Alaska a couple of weeks ago, helping my friend do a group regression. And this beautiful space up in Palmer, and this beautiful woman that owns it and runs it and held an incredible space for the group. And we had gone through the first part of the group and everybody was sharing their experience, or no, we gone through the whole thing. And then at the end we were doing our sharing. And one lady had this very powerful experience, but then she started to go into her old stories around politics and all this other stuff. And the woman that owns the space stopped her and was like, nope. Did you feel how the frequency in the room dropped when she started going into that? And everyone's like, oh, yeah. And she's like, let's tap into our hearts for a minute and come back to our experience. And I was like, yes, in that moment. And even the lady that had started to do it was grateful, because she's like, oh, yeah, brought it back up. And so that was a very powerful teaching for me of we can do this in the moment in any circle.
And not in a, like to
Yeah.
do it in a very loving,
Yes.
safe, kind way.
Uh-huh.
Because our energy habits and patterns are so powerful. And the older we are,
Yeah. Yes.
the more set in and powerful. I mean, I'm turning 50 this year. I know. And I'm noticing for people my age and then even older,
Oh yeah.
our habits just get stronger and stronger and
Yep.
stronger, unless or until we consciously change
Yeah.
them, reprogram them.
Yeah, and so many people want that. I honestly believe they really want to change those habits and behaviors that they're, so many of us are at the point of realizing they're not serving us. But the longer we've had them ground in, the harder it can be to be aware of them, first of all, but then have a way to change them. So this is such a great way. Just that heart mind coherence or the breath. I use the breath all the time. Long in, longer out. Or short, powerful in, long out. And it down regulates the nervous system. So just that alone is like drops you. And then combining that with tapping into the heart space, positive emotion. Yep.
And I even use it when I don't know what to do.
Mm.
Those moments where I'm like, maybe I'm feeling something, but I don't really can't even identify it or
Yeah.
why I'm feeling it, and I don't know what to do about it, whether it's something internal or external that's happening, and I'm just not quite sure what to do. Heart mind coherence,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's kind of another form of the pause.
Yep. It's the pause, and all of that, comes back around to being able to open the space to hear the inner guidance, to connect with the higher self, because that's all through the heart too. Which is why we started talking about it. And then I did want to mention, we had watched or listened to Gregg Braden did this wonderful interview with Andre de Kuhn on Know Thyself podcast. Well, I think we're going to put a link below.
We'll link that.
It was last summer, and there's two parts. Part two, they're both really good, but the second one is where he goes into a lot of the science around this technique and really tapping into that inner knowing
and many other things. This
Yes.
podcast is it's such good foundational information
Yep.
for living your best life, being your best self, and flowing during this time, especially in the outer world.
And I think even mentioning back to the basics, we keep talking about that of like, man, I feel like I'm, back to the basics and all these things of self-care and what does that mean and tapping in and what does that mean? And that's super helpful because it's easy to expect ourselves to know like, oh, we throw these words around like the higher frequencies and higher self and raising awareness and expanding consciousness. And I know for me, it can be very easy to buy into the story of like, well, I should just know how to do all these things. And then I start guilting myself when I'm struggling to connect or tap in. So back to the basics, we're there again, even though it's at a different place.
A couple more short stories about using these tools, these things we've talked about. A year ago, this time, Diana and I were traveling for a month in Thailand and Cambodia, and using our practices. So really being in coherence and playing with the energies like harmony and grace, and really being tuned into our guidance so much of the time. Our trips flow just so beautifully. I mean, it's astounding, especially when we run across other Americans or English speaking travelers, and sometimes get to hear how their trips are going. Because traveling internationally, especially to non-English speaking countries, can be very difficult in many ways. It's not a super easy, simple thing to do. And yet using our tools really, really changes how we flow through and how our trips go in such a beautiful way. I mean, people are very, very kind to us. They don't take advantage of us. We have what we need when we need it. We get great prices for things, fair prices, but also great prices where, sometimes we've observed the American right next to us, not getting that same fair, great price. And often they're not being kind and heart-centered and yeah.
Well, and I was thinking too, this last trip was a good example of, we didn't even have the second half of it planned. We were gone a month and we only had the first 2 weeks of it scheduled, booked, planned. That's it. And we're like, we're just going to trust, we're going to find the right things, the right places. We're going to be guided to the island we should go to and this, that, and the other. And that was so fun to do, of just all intuition led, really, trip. And the powerful experiences and learning that we had across the board.
Yeah. It's magical. It's also based on, you know, decades of our knowledge and then putting that knowledge into practice, which is wisdom. You know, we do have a lot of that underneath us. Also, it is trusting.
You still got to just do it.
And you got to do it. And it's trusting
Yep.
that the universe is always working for us
Yes.
and that life is always working out for us, especially when we're being heart-based. Now, when we, you know, get into lower frequencies, start being fearful in any way, that also manifests. We also get to see that impact our trip or whatever it is we're doing in the moment. So that's beautiful.
Well, and that's where I say, you know, trusting for me, when I take action, trusting that I'll be okay. Yeah, wisdom. It's knowledge in action.
One more short thing. Do you have, I don't want to take up all the time. Do you have a story?
No.
Okay. One more short thing is, you know, just very, very close to home. So when my husband or when my children were younger and they still lived at home, when somebody was really grumpy, in a very bad mood for whatever reason, and I didn't immediately know what to do, how to support them, also coming into coherence, making sure that I am pausing, that I am loving myself, because then the energy of that, of being in coherence and making sure that I am loving and nurturing myself, totally impacts their field, because obviously there's out of alignment going on, and there's probably not loving or liking themselves very much going on, and that's manifesting in poor behavior, being very, you know, whatever that is, irritable, grouchy, lashing out, however that manifests. So I just want to throw that simple tool out. And even if, you know, I've done that before and it might not impact right that very minute, but I feel like I see the fruits of that quickly, even if it's not right in that moment. It might be 5 minutes later or even an hour later, but I just see the impact in other people when I am in harmony. Yeah.
Well, it's so easy to take things personal.
Yeah.
Or personalize it, especially when it's people that we're the closest to, or we spend the most time with. There's such an automatic, and I think that's where a lot of the reaction comes from. So what I hear you saying is like standing outside of that, not making it about you, recognizing, oh, they're in the space, and I've been practicing the same thing. You know, tapping in heart mind coherence. How am I feeling right now? Am I loving myself right now? And that alone just helps me remember, oh, it's not about me. Oh yeah, it's not about me.
Yeah.
A good friend of ours a long time ago had said, you know, I just always assume it isn't about me, and that really helps me neutralize a lot of stuff. And I'm finding that combined with the heart mind coherence and that tapping in of what you're talking about, of how am I loving myself right now? It shifts things so fast. So fast. And we're in such a reactive culture, I want to say, but maybe time is a more appropriate thing, a reactive time.
Well, we've all been programmed to take everything personal.
Yes.
That everything is about us. We all still think we're the center of not only our own, but everybody else's universe. And the truth is, we are each the center of our own universe, and none of us are the center of anybody else's universe.
No. And as the center of my own universe, everything I say and do and think and feel is about me, but not about you.
Yes. And even when somebody else is trying to make it about you, you know, whenever anybody else is, you know, criticizing you, whatever they're doing, however they're acting out, trying to make it personal, it's not. It's never, ever, ever. Nothing anybody else does is ever truly about me.
Yeah. So try that next time that happens, of like, oh, heart mind coherence, breathe, tap in. It's like, it really is a magical tool.
Yeah. And reflecting back when somebody's in poor behavior or negative emotions or whatever, reflecting back love to them in any way that you can. I mean, it's just magic.
that goes into the whole, and we might do another talk around this, that whole mirroring effect. And I would call that a positive mirror of, I'm going to actually mirror to you my heart instead of lots of other things.
Instead of what you're putting out.
That's right.
Let's go with what I'm putting out.
That's right. I'll choose this.
All right. Anything else?
I think that we covered everything we wanted to. This has been an awesome conversation. Thanks for having it with me. And thank you guys for tuning in and being with us.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, guys.